Hi again, everyone. This is step 6 for MAST methodology. I hope you were able to watch all of the videos on these, including the overview of 8 steps and watching each step in their fullness. Most importantly for this one is to watch what was said in step 5, self-edit. This one is focusing on peer edit. This is the trade your paper step. And so whatever you did is trade your work. Okay? For oral language, it would be listen to someone else's recording. For written language, it would be physically trading your paper, tablet, or computer. And what you're doing is you're asking somebody else to engage in your work. There's a lot of things in this one that are good to know. The first thing to know is that you have to respect each other no matter who they are. I understand cultural differences around the world. I understand gender differences. I understand age differences. I understand educational differences. At this point in time, I don't care about those differences in the sense of people thinking they have weight in better translation over somebody else. That's not what needs to happen in this step. What needs to happen is everybody needs to respect what they bring to the table. For example, if a young 20-year-old female comes to the table and they trade translation with somebody who is a 60-year-old pastor who has lived in theology for 40 years, they need to be respectful of each other for multiple reasons. One is that 20-year-old does need to respect that theological background and say, I'm trading my paper to you and I expect you to look for all of these things. How did I do on the theology? And you're trading your paper with me, and you know what? I use language as a 20-year-old, and if I'm fluent in my language, I'm using it differently than you're using it. I represent the next generations of who's going to read this scripture. I can make it sound good for that audience. And so that pastor needs to respect that 20-year-old for what they bring to the table. And you know what? Some 20-year-olds have some fresh insight to theology that we wouldn't expect. And so all of that needs to be taken into an account. And humility is the number one trait of this step. Doesn't matter what you are, it matters that you bring it to the table. And it matters that you respect what somebody else has in them. When you trade papers, here's what you should be doing is, number one is, how's it sound? Does it sound good in the language that's there? Does it sound natural? Is it something that I would say this is good for every audience that's out there? The person who's at home and doesn't get out much to the person who's working and commonly using the language every single day. Does it sound good? Second is, what do I see for mistakes? Protect each other. Okay, this is only going to grow an audience. You need to protect each other. I know it's hard to correct people for their mistakes, okay, but you're protecting them in this sense. It's only going to get worse. They're going to go to the next step and the next step. People who don't do this step, or they get soft, they get too easy on somebody else. They're too nice and they don't do the corrections. They're not actually helping. They're actually setting them up for things that are missed. Keywords are the number one things that are missed when you don't help somebody do a peer edit. They'll get to step 7 and they'll find out, whoops, I messed up that keyword. So we need good peer edits, and we need you to actually be the voice that takes into all of those things that were just mentioned. One is, what skill does each individual bring to the table? We need all of them. We need a variety. We don't need a Bible that's so high in context and comprehension that others can't read it. We need it to be common language use, and we need it to be understood. And we also need every single thing to be looked at. You can bring in resources at any time. You can bring in notes, you can bring in questions, you can bring in words for definitions, you can bring in commentaries if you have them, and you can bring in other source text as well. Okay, primarily though, you should be having a conversation. What we do ask is that you respect each other's work. Have a conversation. Don't check their work and make edits to it. Tell them how to make edits to it. It makes them a better translator for the future. That's a critical step, is respect somebody else's work. It's still theirs that they're owning through the process, and they need to see it through. Make them better. Don't fix things for them. It makes their brain actually shut down. Hopefully these 2 steps in combination do a great job setting up the last 2 steps. Steps 5 and 6 go together very well. If they're done well, steps 7 and 8 go quickly and smoothly. If they're done poorly, there's a lot more work, and often they result in somebody being pushed back into steps 5 and 6 again. And so keep an eye on how you're doing. Find good partners and trade papers, but if you need to do that more often than one person, you can. And seek out other people, especially if you're waiting for something to happen. Thanks everyone. Please review all the steps to this point, and next video is going to be on step 7, which is keyword check. See you there.